guys! So I'm cleaning up my yard today, and I'm cleaning out the shed and getting rid of just all kinds of stuff that accumulates. It's amazing what kind of stuff accumulates. Anyway, and I'm also cleaning up the garden. We're kind of in that transitional stage between summer and you know, everything being beautiful and in bloom, and then turning into fall-ish and getting out your new seedlings and all that stuff into the beds, and at the same time taking away everything that's maybe a little past its prime, or going to seed, or taking up space you want to get it, you know, out of the garden. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of that, and just generally cleaning, and I'll show you where I am. I apologize, I'm doing this by hand today, again. But you guys said it wasn't so bad in the last one, that's good. Okay, so if you go back to the other videos, you'll see that these tomatoes were really big. If I even showed you these tomatoes, I'm not sure. But anyway, they were huge. In fact, there's one in there, it's about this big. I mean, it's way over my head. Let me just point this out. So here it is. This is one of these indeterminate kind of crazy things, and it's gone all the way up there-ish. I think it's even in the back a little more, so it's way up in this bush. Yeah, these tomatoes drive me crazy. They produce really well, and they're really yummy, and I do like them. So what happens is they will just grow crazy. They'll just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and they end up, you know, with these pieces that are like forever long, and they have absolutely nothing in them. So they don't contribute to the actual tomato. All they actually do is they take away from the tomato, because the tomato plant continues to grow, gets so crazy big that the all the energy that you want to go into the tomato and producing more tomatoes goes into making these long, huge, never-ending branches. So what I wanted to what I really wanted to show you was my worm castings. Now, what I did in spring, and I do this every year, I buy worms. I buy 2 kilos of worms. Comes in a big box, and 2 kilos is about 6 pounds. Yeah, about 6 pounds, a little less than 6 pounds of worms. And these are worms that go in the garden. They're not like the red wigglers or something you can't put in the garden. And so I buy them, and then I go through the garden and I just kind of toss them in. Sometimes I'll just lay them on the surface, they'll dig right in. Other times I might lift it up a little bit with a shovel and throw them in. And I do this for a few reasons. 1, I want to add worms to the garden. 2, because I want to have some for the chickens. They go crazy, they love it. And I put a whole bunch into the scratch yard, which is actually the compost pile, which is very convenient because the chickens love turning it over, so they're able to work for me. And oh, I gotta change arms. Oh, okay. Because the chickens love to turn it over, and they get the worms that are underneath, and the worms on the chickens, they break it down, and of course they put their droppings on it, so it just turns into this amazing thing. And then all year long we collect different stuff, sometimes the grass cuttings, lots of bits and pieces from the garden, and we would throw it on there, and by the next spring we open the whole thing, take the whole the fence out in the front, and then drag it across the garden and fill all the beds with the compost that comes from the scratch yard from the chickens. So that's a really great thing. Okay, so what happened? I put these 2 kilos of worms into the garden. Now, I don't know if I had showed you, but okay, for the rest of the garden, you know how insanely packed the beds are. All of the beds are really, really, really thick. So I've got, everything's really close together, things get a little taller because they're trying to reach for the sun, you know, whatever. We have very limited space. I cannot do it the way a lot of you do it, where you put a few plants in really big beds and you give plants a proper amount of space. Here, they just gotta fight. That's how it is. I'm sorry. But it works. I have to make sure there's a lot of dirt going really, really deep, so that the roots of these plants can reach down, because obviously spreading out isn't going to work. So it's like a deep bed planting. That's the first thing. Secondly, if I find that there's not enough going on, or they really are too crowded, then I'll thin them out. So I do that too. Because the bed is covered, and because when I spray or water, I go all the way down, I water down at the base and the roots. What happened is, when I took all the tomatoes, the extra tomatoes that were falling around, out, and some of the plants that were finished or starting to go to seed that I didn't need to get more room, I took them out. Now I found that the entire surface of the bed, so the ground, is covered in worm castings. Now, how totally awesome is that? Okay, so I've created this little ecosystem underneath, which of course is exactly how nature does it, right? But we as gardeners, we like to remove everything. We like to clean everything up and make it all really pretty. And this is good in that depending on what you've got, you might end up with mildew if it's too messy and such. But in nature, of course, that's how it's done. So I was talking to Lark's Garden this morning, and we were discussing this exact thing, that often gardeners like to take everything away and then, you know, there's nothing left. And Lark was saying that what Lark likes to do is take the plants, and when they've been deadheaded, throw them underneath the plant. So then you don't have to worry about lugging the plant or the compost or, you know, all the bits and pieces, all of this, all the way over to your compost, and then of course letting it decompose and then lugging it back, because that's a lot of extra work. Now I do agree completely, and in a lot of cases that's really a good idea, and in other cases it's not going to be a good idea. For example, the amount of tomatoes that I have right now that I've cut off, if I don't take them away, well, we're just going to be 2 feet in tomatoes. Like, it'll take forever for this to decompose. But things like flower petals or little leaves that fall on the ground, absolutely, definitely throw them on the ground, let them decompose. Even dig them in a little bit if you want to. So I want to show you the worm castings, because this is really, really cool. If you're familiar with worms, you'll know what you're looking for. It's like a little grainy, dark thing. It's really tiny, and they kind of look like miniature poop, like really, really tiny poop. It's obviously not the soil part. Anyway, if you have a worm bin, then you'll know what you're looking for. And if you don't, just take my word for it. It's completely covered in worm castings. It's so cool. It's really neat to be able to see that like this. And that's what happens when you put 2 kilos or 6 pounds of worms into your flower beds. You have more worms. Obviously they're having babies and they're producing even more worms. And at the end of the season, or sometime this year, I'm gonna get more worms, because of course the chickens always like to eat their worms. So I've pulled all the plants from the corner of this bed out, and I'm about to plant some malva into it. Now I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna do, but I need something right now just to fill this space. And if I find that it wants more sun, then I will move it. You find something good to eat, little one?